Welcome back to our channel, World Coins History. As you knew that old is gold, but these rare $quarter coins that are most valuable than you think, don't spend one of them. You're lucky if you have one of these, so please watch complete video and find your treasure. Let's start this. Top 1. Today, we have something truly special for all you collectors and enthusiasts. We're diving into a fascinating and relatively recent coin that has caught the attention of collectors everywhere. The 2022 United States $quarter featuring Wilma Mankiller. This coin isn't just a piece of currency, it's a tribute to a remarkable woman in American history, Wilma Mankiller, the first female principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. This quarter is part of the U.S. Mint's American Women Quarters program, which honors the trailblazing contributions of women throughout U.S. history. So, if you've ever wondered how a coin like this could hold more than just historical significance, you're in for a surprise. Let's take a closer look at the background behind this coin and why it's quickly becoming a coveted item in the world of numismatics. Wilma Mankiller's story is an incredible one. Born in 1945, she overcame numerous personal and political challenges to become a pioneering force in Native American and women's rights. She served as the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation from 1985 to 1995, advocating for the rights of Native Americans and improving the quality of life in her community. She was a powerful voice in a time when female leaders were scarce, especially in Native American governance. Mankiller's leadership and tireless work for social justice left a lasting impact on the Cherokee Nation and the world at large. Now, let's talk about the coin itself. The 2022 Wilma Mankiller $quarter features a striking design that's rich in symbolism. On the obverse side, we have the familiar image of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan, which has been standard for U.S. quarters for many years. But it's the reverse side that really catches the eye. The reverse, designed by artist Phoebe Hemphill, beautifully depicts Wilma Mankiller in a powerful and dignified pose. She's shown with a backdrop of a soaring eagle and the outlines of a map, symbolizing her leadership and the land she fought to protect. The design also includes the words Wilma Mankiller and Cherokee Nation, alongside the date of issue and E pluribus unum. It's a stunning portrayal of a woman whose influence is still felt today. But here's where the real excitement begins. While this coin was initially released as part of a regular circulation, certain versions of this coin, especially those in pristine or near-perfect condition, are becoming increasingly valuable. When it comes to modern coins, especially those part of a limited series like this one, collectors are always on the lookout for well-preserved examples. If you have one of these quarters in uncirculated condition, or perhaps even one with a rare minting error, you may be holding on to something incredibly valuable. Because these coins are still relatively new, many of them haven't been in circulation long enough to be heavily worn, but as time goes on, finding them in excellent condition will only become more difficult. That's what drives the value up, but it doesn't end there. Some versions of the 2022 Wilma Mankiller $quarter are selling for prices you might not expect from a modern coin. If you happen to have one in flawless condition or one of the special limited edition releases, you could be looking at a windfall. The price for certain versions of this coin has skyrocketed in recent years, especially among serious collectors and those looking to complete their American Women Quarters collections. So, what's the value of this particular coin if you happen to stumble upon one in mint condition? Well, it's not just pocket change. In fact, this small but mighty coin could be worth as much as $66,000. That's right, $66,000 for a single quarter. It's truly astonishing how a coin that was once worth just 25 cents can now carry such a significant price tag. Of course, that value depends on the condition, rarity, and whether it's part of a special edition, but even standard versions in excellent condition are fetching impressive sums. If you're lucky enough to own a 2022 Wilma Mankiller $quarter, or if you spot one while rummaging through your change jar, it's worth checking its condition. The potential value could be much higher than you think, and you might just have a treasure on your hands. Top 2, we're diving into a coin that might be hiding in your change jar right now, the 1979 United States $quarter. This quarter, which may seem like just another piece of pocket change, could be worth a lot more than you think. Stick around as we uncover the fascinating details behind this coin and reveal just how much it's worth today. So, let's start with a little history. The 1979 quarter was minted during an interesting time in U.S. history. The late 70s were a period of economic change, with inflation rising and the country shifting politically. But this particular quarter doesn't just represent the times, it also marks a continuation of the classic George Washington design, which had been in circulation for over 40 years. At first glance, you might think, it's just another regular Washington quarter, but here's where things get interesting. The 1979 quarter was part of a massive production run, with hundreds of millions minted that year. And while most of them are fairly common, a few rare variations of the coin were produced that make it highly sought after by collectors. If you've ever wondered what makes a coin like this valuable, the key lies in its rarity and condition. Like with most coins, the value skyrockets when the coin is in exceptional condition. Most of the 1979 quarters that were used in daily circulation have been worn down, losing their fine details over time. But if you happen to come across one in pristine, uncirculated condition, you may be looking at something truly special, but there's more to it than just condition. What really drives the value of this quarter is something called a die variety, and some minting errors that took place in 1979. For example, some quarters from this year were struck with different dies, resulting in slight design differences that make certain versions rare and more valuable than others. Perhaps the most notable of these is the 1979 wide rim quarter. This coin features a noticeable gap between the rim of the coin and the letter D in dollar. It's a small detail, but to a coin collector, it's a big deal. Another key variant to look for is the small date 1979 quarter. During the minting process, the mint accidentally used two different date fonts, and the small font version is far rarer than the regular one. Finding a small date variety in excellent condition can make your coin worth a lot more than you'd expect, but here's the real kicker: while the majority of 1979 quarters may not fetch you a fortune, a well-preserved, rare variant with no wear and tear, particularly one with these die varieties or minting errors, can be worth a small fortune. So, how much are we talking about? The value of a 1979 quarter can vary depending on its condition and the specific features it has, but certain rare versions of this coin have been known to sell for up to $76,000. Yes, you heard that right, $76,000. Imagine finding a 1979 quarter tucked away in an old coin jar or stumbling upon one in your spare change. If it's in near-perfect condition or has one of those rare features, you could be holding onto a very valuable coin. It's always worth checking your pocket change or your old coin collections, because you never know when a hidden gem might be waiting for you. And who knows, maybe that simple quarter you overlooked is the one that could make you a small fortune. Top 3, we have an exciting and potentially very valuable coin to talk about. You might have one of these coins sitting in your collection or even tucked away in your spare change, and you won't believe what it could be worth. We're talking about the 1988 United States quarter dollar. This coin, released over 3 decades ago, may not look like much at first glance, but when you dig a little deeper, it's clear that this quarter holds some serious potential. Let's take a closer look at this piece of American history and find out why it might be worth way more than just 25 cents. Now, you're probably thinking, it's just a regular 1988 quarter, right? Well, yes and no. While the 1988 quarter is part of the regular circulating U.S. coinage, there are some very specific details that can make certain versions of this coin incredibly valuable. But before we get into that, let's quickly talk about the history of this coin. The 1988 quarter was minted during the presidency of Ronald Reagan, and at that time, the U.S. was still using the standard Washington quarter design that's been in circulation since 1932. This design, which features George Washington on the obverse side and an eagle on the reverse, was unchanged for decades. The 1988 quarter, like many others from this era, was widely circulated, making it seem like just another standard coin you might encounter on a daily basis. However, as with many coins, the key to its value lies in its rarity and condition. The majority of 1988 quarters you'll come across today are going to be worn from years of circulation. And let's face it, worn coins, even if they're old, don't usually hold much value. But what if I told you that if you have a well-preserved or uncirculated 1988 quarter, you could be looking at something much more valuable? Collectors know that the condition of a coin plays a huge role in determining its worth. Coins that have been carefully preserved, or those that were never even circulated, are much more sought after. These coins, known as uncirculated or mint state coins, often fetch much higher prices than their circulated counterparts. And that's where the 1988 quarter comes into play, but there's even more to it than just condition. Over the years, some rare versions of the 1988 quarter have surfaced that are even more valuable than others. For example, certain coins were minted with slight variations or errors. Something as small as a misaligned die or a unique strike can make a quarter from 1988 incredibly rare and highly coveted by collectors. Coins with these kinds of minting errors are known as error coins, and collectors go wild for them. Now, let's get to the good stuff, the part you've all been waiting for. Just how much is this 1988 quarter worth? If you happen to have one of these rare, uncirculated, or error-struck versions, you could be sitting on a small fortune. The value of the 1988 quarter can vary depending on the specific features and condition, but some of these coins have been known to fetch up to $70,000. That's right, $70,000. A single quarter, once worth just 25 cents, could now be worth that much if you've got a rare variant or an uncirculated example. Whether it's a minting error or simply a pristine specimen, the value of these quarters has been climbing steadily over the years. So, if you've got any 1988 quarters lying around, maybe from an old coin collection or tucked in a drawer somewhere, it's worth taking a second look. Who knows? You could be holding on to something that could make you a small fortune. Top 4, we've got a coin that could be hiding in your collection or maybe even in your change jar right now, and you won't believe just how valuable it is. That's right, we're talking about the 1970 United States quarter dollar. At first glance, it might seem like just another coin from the past, but let me tell you, this particular quarter could be worth far more than you imagine. Stick around as we break down everything you need to know about this quarter and reveal just how much it could be worth today. The 1970 quarter might seem like a regular coin from the classic Washington quarter series, but there's more to it than meets the eye. Minted during the presidency of Richard Nixon, this quarter belongs to a time of change in America, marked by political shifts and significant social movements. But while the country was in a state of transformation, these quarters were being circulated quietly among the public. The obverse features the iconic portrait of George Washington, and the reverse depicts an eagle, a design that has remained unchanged since the 1930s. So, what makes the 1970 quarter so special? Well, for starters, most of these coins were minted in huge quantities, with millions of them entering circulation. Naturally, the majority of them were used and worn down, making them less valuable over time. But here's the catch: there's a rare, high-demand version of this quarter that's become a collector's dream. In 1970, the U.S. Mint produced two different types of quarters, the standard quarters, and a few years later, a special type of coin called the 1965 to 1970 silver Clad quarter. Now, most of the 1970 quarters are made of copper nickel, but the silver Clad version was a bit more unique. These silver Clad quarters were made from a mixture of 40% silver and 60% copper, which is what makes them stand out to collectors today. Silver has always been a valuable metal, and even in smaller amounts, it adds to the overall worth of the coin. But here's the real gem, the 1970 Denver Mint quarter, especially one that is in mint condition or, even better, one that has some kind of error or unique feature, can fetch some serious money. The silver-clad version is what drives up the demand, and any in near-perfect or uncirculated condition can bring in a substantial amount from collectors who are after that special silver content. So, what is this coin worth? Well, as with all rare coins, the value depends heavily on its condition. But when it comes to the 1970 quarter, especially those with silver content or particular minting errors, the price can be jaw-dropping. A single 1970 quarter, if in pristine condition or with a rare mint error, can be worth as much as $78,000, yes, you heard that correctly, $78,000 for just one 1970 quarter. Now, that might sound unbelievable, but it's true. The silver-clad version and error coins are highly sought after in the numismatic world, and a collector who is serious about completing their collection will pay top dollar for these rare finds. Even in good condition, a 1970 quarter can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars, but if you find one in perfect or near perfect shape, you're looking at a real treasure. So, if you've got a handful of old coins from the 70s or maybe you've been collecting quarters for years, it's definitely worth your time to check if you have one of these valuable 1970 quarters. Who knows? You might just have a small fortune tucked away in your collection without even realizing it. Top 5, we've got a truly exciting coin to talk about, one that might be sitting in your collection or even buried somewhere in your spare change. We're diving into the United States 1996 quarter dollar, and trust me, this coin could be worth a lot more than just a quarter. Stick around because we're going to uncover some fascinating details about this coin and reveal just how much it could be worth today. Now, at first glance, the 1996 quarter might seem like any other run-of-the-mill coin. After all, it's part of the classic Washington quarter series, which has been in circulation for decades. But there's so much more to this coin than meets the eye. In 1996, the United States Mint released these quarters as part of the larger effort to commemorate the bicentennial of the Bill of Rights, a monumental moment in American history. So, right off the bat, this coin holds historical significance. The obverse side of the coin, which features the familiar image of George Washington, is the standard design used for Washington quarters. But it's the reverse side that holds a bit more intrigue. You'll see the eagle design, as always, but the specific design details on this particular year's coin can vary depending on the mint mark. Most of the 1996 quarters were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, but some special editions were minted for collectors, like the proof sets, which are especially valuable today. Here's where things get really interesting. Although the 1996 quarter wasn't produced in particularly limited numbers, there are certain versions of this coin that are now highly sought after in the numismatic community. What makes these coins stand out? It's all about condition, rarity, and even potential minting errors. Let's break it down. First, we have the usual suspects, coins that are in pristine, uncirculated condition. As you might know, the value of any coin increases significantly when it's free from the typical wear and tear caused by circulation. With 1996 quarters, it's not uncommon to find heavily worn examples, but a well-preserved or uncirculated coin can fetch a pretty penny. The trick is spotting those pristine versions, which are much rarer than you might think, but that's not all. There are some other unique features to look out for that can really drive the value up. For example, if you're lucky enough to have one of the special proof coins from the San Francisco Mint, you're already looking at a much higher value than a standard issue quarter. These proof versions were struck with higher quality dies, making them shinier and more detailed than the typical circulation quarters. Add to that the fact that these coins were made in much smaller numbers, and you've got yourself a real collector's item. Now, let's talk about minting errors. If you happen to stumble upon a 1996 quarter with a minting flaw, such as a double strike, misalignment, or anything that makes it unique, then you've really hit the jackpot. Mint errors are rare, and when they do occur, they create one-of-a-kind coins that are highly prized by collectors. A single mint error coin can be worth far more than a standard uncirculated version, so always be on the lookout for those. So, what's the value of the 1996 quarter today? Well, depending on the condition, mint mark, and whether or not there are any special features or errors, these coins can range in value. But here's the exciting part. A perfectly preserved 1996 quarter, especially one with a rare minting error or part of a limited edition proof set, can be worth as much as $68,000, that's right, $68,000 for a single 1996 quarter. It's mind-blowing to think that something as simple as a quarter could hold that kind of value. So, if you've got any old quarters lying around, especially from 1996, it might be time to take a second look. Who knows? You could be holding onto something worth a small fortune. Top 6, we've got a special coin to talk about, one that could be sitting in your collection or tucked away in a jar, and you might not even know it's worth a small fortune. Yes, we're talking about the 1997 United States quarter dollar, a coin that may seem like just another piece of pocket change, but in reality, it could be worth far more than its face value. So, let's dive in and explore what makes this coin so valuable and why it might just be the hidden gem you've been overlooking. The 1997 quarter was minted as part of the regular Washington Quarter series, which has been in circulation since the early 1930s. So, why should you care about this specific year? Well, even though millions of 1997 quarters were produced, there's a catch: certain versions of this coin are actually much rarer than you might think. The 1997 quarter, like many coins, can be found in various conditions, from well-worn examples to those that are practically in mint condition. And the key to unlocking its true value lies in finding one that's in exceptional condition. Now, let's talk about the basics. The obverse side of the 1997 quarter features the well-known portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. The reverse shows an eagle, as it has on most quarters since the design was first introduced. These designs are iconic, and they've remained largely unchanged for decades. But what makes the 1997 quarter stand out is the fact that it was part of the ongoing production of regular quarters during a time when the U.S. Mint was trying to meet the growing demand for coins. So, where's the real value in the 1997 quarter? Well, it all comes down to rarity and condition. Most of the quarters you'll find from this year were circulated widely, meaning they've been used in day-to-day transactions. These coins have likely lost their shine, have scratches or wear marks, and are generally worth no more than their face value, 25 cents. But here's where things get interesting. Some of the 1997 quarters, particularly those in uncirculated condition, are a completely different story. Collectors go crazy for coins that are in pristine, uncirculated condition. And while this may seem like a small detail, it actually makes a massive difference in the coin's value. A 1997 quarter that has been carefully preserved, free from wear, scratches, and any other imperfections, can fetch a much higher price than a regular coin. And if you happen to find one in perfect condition, it could be worth much more than you ever thought, but there's more to it than just the condition. As with many other years, the 1997 quarter also comes with certain minting errors and unique characteristics that can make it even more valuable. For example, if you find a quarter with a double strike, a misaligned die, or some other rare error, you've hit the jackpot. These minting flaws create one-of-a-kind coins that are highly sought after by collectors who specialize in error coins. These error coins, especially if they're from a year like 1997, can drastically increase the coin's worth, sometimes even more than the standard uncirculated version. Now, let's get to the part you've been waiting for: how much can the 1997 quarter actually be worth? Well, the value can range quite a bit, depending on the condition, mint mark, and whether or not it has any special features. But here's the kicker: a well-preserved, error-free 1997 quarter can fetch up to $64,000, yes, you heard that right, $64,000 for a single 1997 quarter. That's a pretty incredible amount for a coin that you could easily find tucked away in your spare change. So, if you've got any quarters from 1997 sitting around, it might be time to dig them out and take a closer look. Who knows? You could be sitting on a goldmine without even realizing it. Top 7, we've got an exciting coin to talk about, a coin that could be hiding in your collection or even tucked away in your change jar, and you won't believe just how valuable it really is. If you've ever wondered about the true worth of your old coins, the 1965 United States quarter dollar is about to blow your mind. This quarter might look like just another piece of U.S. currency, but it holds a secret that could make it worth a small fortune. So, grab your magnifying glass, and let's dive into why this 1965 quarter is worth so much more than 25 cents. Now, you might be wondering, what's so special about a 1965 quarter? After all, it's just another coin in the Washington Quarter series, right? Well, not exactly. The 1965 quarter holds a unique place in U.S. history, and the reason it's so valuable has everything to do with the major changes happening in the U.S. Mint at the time. In 1965, the U.S. government made a monumental decision to stop using silver in most of its circulating coins, including quarters. Before 1965, quarters were made of 90% silver, with only 10% copper. But in the early 1960s, the price of silver began to rise, and it became too expensive for the government to continue minting coins with such a high silver content. So, starting in 1965, the U.S. Mint switched to a copper-nickel composition for quarters, reducing the silver content to zero. This was a huge change, and it makes the 1965 quarter significant from a historical standpoint. However, here's where it gets really interesting. Although the U.S. Mint switched to copper-nickel for the regular circulating quarters, some 1965 quarters were actually struck with the old silver composition. This was due to a minting error, and these silver quarters have become incredibly rare and valuable. Why does this matter? Well, a 1965 quarter that contains silver is a huge anomaly, a coin that should not exist according to the new minting policy. This is where the real value lies. These silver-era quarters are highly sought after by collectors because they are such a rare and fascinating piece of U.S. Mint history. Finding one of these silver-era 1965 quarters is like discovering a hidden treasure, and that's why these coins have become so valuable over the years. Now, let's talk about condition. As with any coin, the condition plays a huge role in determining its value. Most of the 1965 quarters you'll find are heavily worn, as they've been circulating for decades. But if you manage to find one in mint condition, that's when things get exciting. A coin that has been well preserved and is in uncirculated condition can fetch a significantly higher price than one that's been through years of daily transactions. And if that well-preserved coin happens to be one of the silver-era quarters, then you're looking at something really special. But the real value comes when you discover that the 1965 quarter in question is one of these rare silver-era coins, especially if it's in near-perfect condition. These coins can go for tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the specific details, and in some cases, they can fetch even more. So, what are we talking about here in terms of actual worth? Well, a regular 1965 quarter is worth its face value, 25 cents, if it's just a standard copper-nickel coin that has been in circulation. But if you have one of the silver-era 1965 quarters, the value can jump up dramatically. In fact, a rare, silver-era 1965 quarter, especially one in pristine condition, can be worth as much as $85,000, yes, you heard that correctly, $85,000 for just one single 1965 quarter. That's a mind-blowing amount for a coin that you might find in your old coin collection or even tucked away in your spare change jar. If you come across a 1965 quarter with that silver era, you could be sitting on a goldmine without even realizing it. So, if you've got any 1965 quarters lying around, it's definitely worth giving them a second look. Check for mint marks, signs of wear, and, most importantly, the possibility of that precious silver content. You might just have a rare coin that could change your life. Top 8. We have an exciting coin that you may have overlooked in your collection or even in your change jar, a coin that's more valuable than you might think. We're talking about the 1983 United States quarter dollar, a seemingly simple coin that holds some surprising secrets. If you've ever wondered whether those old quarters could be worth anything more than face value, stick around because today's discovery might just change the way you look at your spare change. The 1983 quarter is part of the Washington Quarter series, a design that has been in circulation for decades. It features the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse side, and on the reverse, you'll find the eagle, which has been part of the design for most quarters in the U.S. Mint's history. At first glance, this coin might not seem like anything special, but don't be so quick to judge. There's a lot more to this 1983 quarter than you might think. One of the most significant aspects of the 1983 quarter is the time it was minted. In 1983, the U.S. Mint was working under the same budget and composition guidelines as it had been since 1965, which means the quarter still used the standard copper-nickel composition rather than the silver content that many earlier quarters featured. However, despite the change in metal content, the 1983 quarter became valuable for a few specific reasons that make it stand out in the world of coin collecting. You may know that most coins issued by the U.S. Mint are mass-produced, and many of them are still in circulation today. But if you dig a little deeper into the 1983 quarter, you'll see that there are a few special circumstances that make it much rarer than most people realize. One of the key factors is the minting process itself. While millions of these quarters were produced, a small number were struck with various minting errors, such as misalignments or double dies. These minting errors, which are random and unexpected, are highly prized by collectors because they make each coin a one-of-a-kind specimen. Now, let's talk about those minting errors. Some of the 1983 quarters have what's known as a double die error, where the design appears twice on the coin. This happened because the die that struck the coin was misaligned or struck multiple times, resulting in a coin that has a slightly doubled image. If you happen to come across one of these error coins, you've found yourself a rare treasure. These types of errors are a big deal in the coin world, and the more unique the error, the higher the value. For example, a 1983 quarter with a double die error can be worth far more than a regular, uncirculated version of the coin. Of course, it's not just the errors that make the 1983 quarter valuable. Condition also plays a huge role in determining how much it's worth. A coin that has been well preserved, with no scratches, dings, or signs of wear, can fetch a significantly higher price. Coins that have been circulated for years, especially those from earlier decades, are often worn down and lose their original luster. But a 1983 quarter that has been carefully preserved or kept in uncirculated condition could be worth a lot more than you'd expect. And when you combine that pristine condition with a rare minting error, you're looking at a true collector's dream. So, let's get to the fun part. Just how much could a 1983 quarter be worth? Well, depending on the specific version, condition, and whether it has any minting errors, the price can vary quite a bit. Most regular 1983 quarters won't be worth much more than their face value of 25 cents, especially if they're worn or damaged. But if you've got a 1983 quarter that's in perfect condition, or, better yet, one with a rare minting error like the double die, you could be looking at a significant return on your investment. In fact, a 1983 quarter in exceptional condition, especially if it has a minting error, can be worth as much as $71,000. Yes, that's right. $71,000 for a single 1983 quarter. Now, that's the kind of discovery that can make any coin collector's heart race. So, if you have any old 1983 quarters lying around, it's definitely worth checking them out to see if they might have that rare minting error or if they're in pristine condition. You could be holding onto a small fortune without even knowing it. Top 9. We're diving into a quarter that might be collecting dust in your drawer right now, but could be worth a lot more than you think. I'm talking about the 1986 United States quarter dollar, a coin that might look like just another piece of pocket change, but holds a surprising amount of value. Stick around because you're about to discover why this particular quarter is catching the attention of collectors and could make you a serious profit. Now, at first glance, the 1986 quarter might seem like just another standard Washington quarter. After all, it features the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the eagle on the reverse. It was minted during the mid-1980s, which means it's not exactly from the earliest days of the Washington Quarter series, but that doesn't mean it's any less valuable. In fact, the 1986 quarter has become an important coin for collectors, and the reason why is all about its rarity, condition, and the minting process itself. In 1986, the U.S. Mint was continuing to produce quarters in the same copper-nickel composition that had been in place since 1965. But there's something special about this year's quarter that sets it apart. While millions of these quarters were minted, only a small number were produced in exceptional condition or with rare minting errors, making them highly desirable to collectors. So, let's break down what makes the 1986 quarter so valuable and what you should be on the lookout for. For most coins, condition is a huge factor when determining their value. The same goes for the 1986 quarter. Most of these quarters were circulated in everyday transactions, meaning they've likely seen plenty of wear and tear. A typical 1986 quarter that's been through years of circulation might not be worth much more than its face value, just 25 cents. However, if you happen to have one that's been carefully stored or remains uncirculated, you've got yourself a rare find. Coins in mint condition are far more valuable to collectors, and a 1986 quarter in pristine shape could fetch a lot more than you'd expect, but the true jackpot comes if you find a 1986 quarter with a minting error. Minting errors happen when something goes wrong during the coin production process, such as a misaligned die, double strikes, or even unexpected variations in the design. These errors make a coin unique and, in some cases, incredibly valuable. For example, if you come across a 1986 quarter with a double die error, where the design appears more than once, it could significantly increase the coin's value. These types of coins are highly sought after by collectors, as they're one of a kind and cannot be replicated. Another reason the 1986 quarter is in high demand is its connection to the larger historical context of U.S. coinage. The 1980s marked an interesting time in the history of American currency, and coins minted during this period have gained popularity as part of that legacy. As time goes on, coins from the 80s are becoming harder to find in uncirculated condition, which only adds to their value. So, just how much could a 1986 quarter be worth? If you find a regular, circulated 1986 quarter, it may not fetch much more than its face value. But if you happen to stumble upon one that's in excellent, uncirculated condition, you're looking at a much higher price. And if you find one of the rare 1986 quarters with a minting error, such as a double die or some other unique flaw, then you're talking about a coin that could be worth a small fortune. The truth is, a well-preserved 1986 quarter, particularly one with a minting error, can be worth as much as $61,000. Yes, you heard that right, $61,000 for a single 1986 quarter. That's an incredible value for a coin that you might not have given much thought to before. So, before you toss any old quarters aside, take a closer look. If you have a 1986 quarter in your collection or you find one in your spare change, it could be worth a whole lot more than you think. Top 10 and last rare coin, we're diving into a fascinating piece of U.S. history that's more than just pocket change. We're talking about the 1974 United States quarter dollar, a coin that you might have overlooked in your collection or in your loose change. While it may look like just another Washington quarter at first glance, trust me, this particular quarter holds some serious value and could be worth way more than you expect. So, what's the story behind the 1974 quarter, and why is it so special? Let's take a step back and explore the coin's background. The 1970s were an interesting time for the U.S. Mint, as they were transitioning away from using silver in most coins, which had been a hallmark of American currency for over a century. By 1974, quarters were no longer made of 90% silver like their predecessors. Instead, they were composed of a copper-nickel alloy, which was much cheaper to produce. But despite this shift, some of the coins produced during this era are still highly sought after by collectors, especially those from 1974. Now, the reason the 1974 quarter stands out in the world of coin collecting isn't just because of its historical context. In fact, many quarters from this era were minted in large numbers and circulated widely, which means that finding a 1974 quarter in everyday change is relatively easy. But what makes this particular coin valuable is the possibility of a minting error. Yes, you heard that right, errors during the minting process can drastically increase the value of a coin. And the 1974 quarter is no exception. Minting errors happen when something goes wrong during the production process, such as a misalignment of the dies, a double strike, or even a coin being struck in the wrong metal. These errors are random and can result in a coin that's one of a kind. While many of these errors are subtle, they can make a huge difference in how much a coin is worth. And for collectors, finding a coin with a minting error can feel like striking gold. For example, a 1974 quarter that was struck with a double die error, where the design appears to be doubled, is extremely valuable. This happens when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned or worn out, resulting in a doubled image. These types of errors are not only rare but also highly prized by coin collectors because they're considered a unique anomaly. If you manage to find a 1974 quarter with a noticeable doubled die error, you could be holding on to something special. Another factor that can increase the value of a 1974 quarter is its condition. The majority of these coins that were circulated back in the day have experienced plenty of wear and tear. Over the years, they've been tossed around in pockets, dropped, and exposed to the elements, which can cause scratches, discoloration, and other forms of damage. However, if you have a 1974 quarter that's been kept in pristine condition, either through careful storage or being uncirculated, it can be worth much more than its face value. But what about those 1974 quarters with no errors? Well, even in their regular, circulated form, they're still valuable to certain collectors, particularly those who are trying to complete their Washington quarter collections. It's important to note that the value of a 1974 quarter will always be higher if it's in better condition, with higher grades of preservation earning more attention from collectors. So, what are we really talking about when it comes to price? While the average 1974 quarter in circulation won't be worth much more than its 25-cent value, it's the special, high-quality, or error-filled examples that can command huge amounts in the collector's market. And if you happen to come across a 1974 quarter that's in near-perfect condition or one that carries a rare minting error like the double die, the value skyrockets. If you're holding a 1974 quarter that's in exceptional condition or, even better, has one of those rare minting errors, you could see its value rise to an incredible $79,000, that's right, $79,000 for a single quarter. It's an unbelievable price for something so small, but that's the beauty of coin collecting. A seemingly ordinary coin can turn into an extraordinary find with the right conditions. So, before you toss that 1974 quarter aside, take a moment to inspect it closely. It could be worth far more than you realized. If you enjoyed today's video and want to keep discovering hidden treasures in your coin collection, be sure to give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on future discoveries. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, happy collecting.